What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel, and in today's video we are going to be playing around with the Ender 3 V3 and the Ender 3 V3 Plus. I do honestly think that this is by far and away the best version of the Ender 3 yet. I actually started 3D printing with the original Ender 3 when it first came out. I ordered it from China direct, and ever since then I kind of fell in love with 3D printing. I started modifying the machine, and I did it for years before I got into any other machines. But the Ender 3 for me was always the V-wheel extrusion machine that we all loved, and Creality used that platform to make other machines build upon the Ender even further, and they have been incrementally improving the machine for a very long time, until the K1 series kind of reinvented the entire brand. They went away from V-wheels and extrusion-based machines and started making their own unique styling and design language, and obviously the Core XY technology that they adapted to those machines really boosted Creality machines and just quality in general, in my opinion. And what they did with the V3 here is they took all their knowledge with their bed slingers and adapted a lot from the K1 here. Obviously linear movement everywhere here, and they took the Core XY movement and kind of flipped it on its side. So now the Core XY turns to Core XZ. So we have two motors, as typical in the Core XY machines. We have the A and B motor controlling the movement going up and down and left and right, and then a single motor on the bed here. So just three motors doing the movement. It's very simple, yet it takes away the lead screws and the single motor typically found on an Ender 3, and it just makes a much faster, more sophisticated, smoother printing experience. Then coupled with their awesome interface from the K1, the great screen, the KLIPPER firmware, obviously that means you're printing fast. There's a lot of hands-off just automation with this machine, so it is by far and away the best Ender 3. And then they went ahead and they made this machine. This is the Ender 3 V3 Plus, and this gives you even more of everything that we got with this machine. It adds chassis bracing, it adds a larger linear rods here, it adds another motor to the Y so you can sling this huge bed, and adds much larger A and B motors. The other thing is there's also an auxiliary fan actually on the back here, so there's just more cooling than ever on any of these machines. So you're just getting a ton, especially with this one, because you're also getting 300 by 300 build area. So it's as large as the older CR10s, yet with this brand new design language, style, and obviously speed that you're getting along with this new system. So absolutely fantastic machines, and those that are fans of the channel and have been subscribed for a while, you might have noticed that this machine specifically has kind of taken its spot here on my shelving while other machines have come and gone, and that's because I'm actually enjoying using this machine and just kind of seeing how it evolves alongside of the rest of Creality is. But ever since having these machines, and every single time I use them, I kind of have one singular problem with this, and I'm sure some of you guys already know where I'm getting at. I'll show you a closer look from this side, but essentially it is actually the runout sensor for the filament that is on the sides of this machine. Let me get you a better angle so I can show you what I'm talking about here. Alright, so as you can see, when you have filament loaded in over here and it's running up into the tool head, what happens is when this thing starts to print, or before it prints and eats the home, it goes all the way to the side, goes all the way to the top, just like this. It has a sensor right over here for leveling. Let me get it right over there. And I always thought this PTFE tube would cause some kind of problems because it bends, because it comes in the back instead of the front. I haven't actually had an actual problem, but this bend is really extreme, and that happens every time at home. But that's not the problem. So it goes to the top. Both machines do this, by the way, which means this sensor has pulled the filament all the way up, as you can see, and the wiring all the way up. Then the machine rockets down to the bottom, and And as you can see, here's what happens. The wiring gets caught into the spool starts to wind, and if it doesn't, what happens is it actually pulls the filament into here. So you end up with this situation. And then the machine starts going and it starts printing rapidly, very quickly. So if you didn't catch this, this is just a bit of a mess. And what happens with mine, especially, is we're actually getting some rubbing. There's actually a hole forming on one of the wires back here because it touches the side of the bed. So this just doesn't match the rest of the machine because it is just so clean and fast and good looking, yet this looks a little bit messy. And there's a couple fixes that you can do, and I want to do both of them here today to show you how you can improve this if you have one of these machines. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're actually going to be taking out the extruder here, and I have it done over here on the plus machine, which is what I'm going to do first. That's why you see the hot end apart here. And what we're going to do is we're going to reprint the cover here. I'm going to show you a closer look in a second to what we're actually doing. But this cover, I found a really awesome mod by Helnor. I'm going to include the links down below for the original and also the remix that I'm going to be using. The remix just adds a little bit more hardware that I have personally here, but the original is amazing. The original has a full-on tutorial on how to do this, and we're just going to be following along with that tutorial. So it's not something that I made. I just want to do it to be able to fix this little issue that we have. But essentially, here is a closer look at the Creality extruder. It shares this extruder with the K series machines. If I go ahead and set this over here, I can show you what we're going to be printing. So this is what we printed. I printed this on the X1C in 3D Max ASA carbon fiber, and this remix includes a M2 nut here and an M2x8 bolt right over here. It also includes this collet, and this just makes it so that we can put the PTFE tube right in there, kind of like the stock machine, and it makes it a little bit cleaner and easier for everyone. So that's why I chose this particular one. But as you can see, the print came out perfectly, and it's going to work out exactly how we like. So there is a couple things that we need for this. The first thing is we need a 4mm bearing ball right over here. And where I got mine is I got mine from one of these 608 bearings. I believe I cut this from a roller blade or roller skate that we were throwing out that my daughter no longer used, and I am a hoarder, so, well, I kept these. But I took this apart and I took that bearing out of it, and it worked perfectly. The other thing that's already installed in there is this collet. They're really inexpensive. You can find them all over the place. So I had a few of them, so we went ahead and press fit one in there already. And then the most complicated part, you might say, is this little switch that you have to make. So this is just a typical switch, and if you can see by the instructions that are included in the file here, you just have to cut this off so that it lines up with the bottom, and you have to wire this up, just really simple, quick little solder points to this tiny JST plug. And that's because, well, Creality has really small plugs on their boards, and it is going to be plugging into right there. There's actually an unpopulated port right over here for a filament sensor because they reuse these boards from the K series. So we are essentially going to be removing the PTFE tube, adding a sensor inside of the extruder so that we can rerun the PTFE tube and just have the filament sensor inside. There is going to have to be a tiny little bit of work we're going to have to do in Klipper, but everything looks really simple in the DIY of the file. Let's see if this solves all the issues that I have with this machine. All right, so let's put that together and let's go ahead and check out if we can fix this tiny little gripe that I have with both of these machines. Let's go. There you go. And now we can do a little test. That is rolling perfect. Our lock and unlock still works. And of course we have our collet over here and our wires that are flat right over here and our plug. Cool. Let's drop this into the machine. Let's change some things in Klipper. Let's see how it does. All right, so to get the extruder back in there, it is going to go this way with the motor facing us. I am at the back of the machine, and this is where we originally plugged in the extruder. It is going to stay here, but our new wiring, the 3 wires, are going to go into this plug right over here. On the front of it, it is actually labeled filament, and on the back it has the letters VGS. Make sure that your V is the red wire, black is the G for ground, and then your signal wire in our case is going to be yellow down there, and that's the S. So it looks correct there. It is a tiny plug, so just take your time plugging it in correctly. And the name of the game for getting this thing back in here is just making sure that you're not pinching any of the wiring and just kind of getting it all in there nice and smooth. And when you do, it will just drop right in. Just like this. You kind of have to wiggle it around, and as you can see, I kind of have to hold the wires up and out of the way so that nothing is pinched. And then once it's down there, you can kind of just get them in there as long as nothing is snagged or in the way. There we go. So now it's just a matter of putting our hardware back in, putting the cover on, plugging in this main wire here, and then we need to go into Klipper and just follow the instructions on what we need to paste, and we should be good. So let's go ahead there. To do is remove this. You can technically leave it plugged in and keep it here, but I want to remove it and see what's under there just to kind of get it out of the way and keep things minimal. I am going to try to undo this wire and kind of put it back down into the bottom of the machine. So let's see, is this going to be in the way? Nope. And this thing is just a bracket that's holding that wire in place and keeping it managed a little bit better. So for the sensor, we can unplug it, and let's see if we can take it out of this wire loom. Yep, we can take it out of the wire loom. And let's see if we can move it to the bottom here. For the extruder wire, you can remove it from this sheathing that was originally on the original wire. Now this is much cleaner, but then you can also push this thing gently back in there. I'm not going to push it all the way in just in case we need it again. Once again, nothing here is permanent, so we can always plug it all back in, put it all back how it was, no big deal. One of the other things that we are fixing with this is when this goes to home all the way up at the top, right over here in this corner, you can now see the filament is on this side of the machine. So this is no longer going to be bending it severely here, because originally the filament path goes back here this way. So when this homes, you can actually watch it just get completely smashed in here. Now with that said, I've printed all kinds of filaments on this and I have never broken it there, but it is just a pain to watch it almost bend 90 degrees every time the machine homes. So this just makes it a little bit cleaner and a little bit better. All right, let's get back into Klipper. All right, guys, now that we have everything installed onto the machine, the extruder is back in there, it's time to get this thing actually working with Klipper. And the way to do that is to type in your address into your browser, your IP address. And you have to follow that with a :4408 to pull up the fluid front end, which is what we're looking at here. Now, if you're typing this in and it's not pulling this up, that means you need to get root access to your machine. And the way to do that is to go into the settings of the printer, go to the settings itself, type in root access or find root access on there, tap it, and then go down. It's going to wait for 30 seconds. You're going to hit OK and the little check mark, and then you will get root access. You don't have to do anything anything else, but now you should have access to fluid front end if it doesn't already come up. All right, so that should be easy. But now after this, you want to go ahead to printables. I'll have the link both to the file that I printed and this main one. This main file is by Henlor, like I mentioned before, and he has an awesome tutorial on how to do all of this, including files. I'll also link everything that you need down below, so that just to make it easier for you to search wherever. But what we're looking for is the Klipper configuration files right over here. And all this is saying is that your machine is probably either going to have filament switch sensor 2, or filament switch sensor 0. In my case, it is the latter. Now, it's really important that you know that these instructions on here, this switch right over here, references the K1, the K1 Max, and the K1C boards. Ours, since we're dealing with the V3 machines, the Ender 3 V3 machines, both the regular and the Plus, they have a different pin, and that pin is PA0. So that's really important to know. That's really the main difference here. There's also a couple other things. He talks about the respond command, and you need to actually put that in as well if you're using these machines for the M118 command to work. So let's go ahead and throw that in, and I'll talk about one more little piece of info in here. So the way to do that is in Fluid, you want to go on the left here to configuration. Then you're going to pull up the printer.config file, and we're going to scroll down until we see that command we saw earlier. Mine is right over here, filament switch sensor, filament sensor. Okay, not to whichever. You might actually have this commented out as well, one of the other ones on some of the machines. But in this case, what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead in front of all three of these commands, and I'm going to put a pound symbol or a hashtag, whatever you want to call it. And what this does is it comments out those lines, means they're not actually going to be running. And the reason why I don't want to just delete them is because if I want to ever undo anything or reference those again, those will be there. So I copy and pasted this earlier with my updated pin to PA1. So this essentially just replaces this command with a couple of other things that Helner explains. If you want to read why some of this other stuff is in there, you can tell right over here that respond is in there. But here's the next thing outside of this pin that's really important. It's this command load material, and it's going to load this pin, or it's going to automatically load this this command if you insert a filament. And the reason why it's important is because load material actually heats the hot end to 240 degrees and then loads filament automatically. Very convenient for if you have run out of filament, or if you're just putting new filament in, you just put that in there and it'll heat and extrude. It makes it really easy. However, if you think 240 is a little bit hot for most of the filament that you're going to be using, you can do one of two things. You can just comment this out just like that, so that you no longer do this part automatically. All it'll do is it'll let the machine know that there's filament in there, and it won't run a command. Or you can find your load_material macro in your config and swap the the instructions there, whether you want to make it 210, 220, or hotter if you're dealing with hotter filaments. Whatever you want to do, it's Klipper. You can do it however you want. For me, I'm mostly going to be using PLA, so I'm actually going to leave load material in because I find it very useful, especially when the filament runs out. I can just put it in. It'll take out a proper amount of filament so that I know it's in the hot end where it needs to go. I'll just hit resume again, and we're good to go. So I'm going to leave it, but that's up to you. I just wanted you to have that piece of information. So next from here, we're going to hit save and restart, and it's going to take some time for it to reboot. You're going to see some error messages. Don't freak out. Everything's fine. It is just rebooting Klipper, and it can't connect with certain things while it's rebooting. So you can either wait on this screen, just don't touch anything, or head back to home. It doesn't matter where you ended up, but you'll see here in a couple seconds we'll have full access again, and we should be good to go. There we go. Error messages are gone. Everything's back to normal. Hit home, and we should be good. Now the printer knows that we're no longer using that stock filament sensor, and now the filament sensor is in the tool head. So how do we make sure that that works? We actually can go down over here. We can query that sensor, and the command to do that is query_filament_sensor. Which sensor do we want to query? We want to use the sensor filament sensor. In some cases, you might have filament sensor 2, and that's where you would put the 2 in. But if we do it right now, you can see the filament is not detected. However, if I go ahead and put the filament in, you'll notice that it should take it right away. I'll unlock the extruder right over here so the gears are open. I will push it all the way down in there. And you guys probably can't hear this, but I can hear the fan turning on, And as well as I can see right here, echo, which is that M118 command. The filament has been inserted, so it's going to go ahead and run that insert filament command, and it's going to turn on and run. If we scroll back up, you can see that it is automatically heating to 240 degrees. So now if we just wait a few seconds here, you'll see that my filament will start to actually extrude out of the hot end, and we should be good to go. I'm going to fast forward this just a second, just so we don't have to wait for the full 240, and I'll talk to you in just a second. All right, there you go. The machine hit 240, and now I can hear the extruder gears are running. I can feel that the filament is going in there. So it is automatically going to purge our extruder here and our hot end so that the new filament that we inserted goes through properly and the machine is ready to go. All right, so that is one way of knowing that everything is working. However, if something didn't run or something along those lines, you can easily run this command again and you'll know that the filament is inserted. So what I want to do here is I'm going to wait a second. I'm going to fast forward through this extrude process while it's extruding, and when it stops, I'll run the command and show you what I mean and what it will show you and things along those lines. All right, there we go. So filament has been purged. Here's our purge material right over here. So now we know everything is loaded in properly. So if you either didn't have this command run or you took it out of your config and you still want to make sure that that sensor is working, just run this command again and it should tell you exactly what it's doing. So right over here, we have filament in and we have filament detected. So we know that our modification works, everything is working, extruding. So now I'm gonna go ahead and print a few things and I'll see you here in a second for the conclusion. Let's go. What a vast improvement in just wire management. The filament is just this direct line, no nonsense here. Our cable is not in the way, it is just laying here completely clean and out of the way. There's no weird clips, no nothing. The only thing that I can see would be an improvement is the filament spool at the top. So we are actually printing this. It is pre-sliced on the machine already. I do have this holder that goes on the front, but it's not as clean of a filament path. This is a little bit better, but this takes up a lot of space. I think the one on top should be even better than this setup. So far, I'm gonna go ahead and test that. We're gonna print that and see how this performs and works and all that good stuff. Okay, just before I hit go here on the camera, I went ahead and cut the filament and it instantly stopped. So it definitely goes really quickly here and it's asking me to forget or refill the filament. So let's go ahead and take the filament that we cut. I'm going to put it right into here. Let's go ahead and open this, drop that down into there. There we go. Good to go, and it's already pulling it automatically. So we're just going to have to wait a second here and hit refill. Very easy so far. Still going. Alright, let's give it a second. Alright, so there we go. It looks like it stopped purging. I'm going to go ahead and hit refill on the screen here. We already did this part, so we don't need to. I'll go home and hit resume. And I'm guessing it's just going to pop right back on. Let's get this filament out of there. I didn't have time to get it. Everything's so fast on this thing. And let's see how it resumes back to the first layer. Printing a bunch of these really cool dragons for Toys for Tots. That should be in the final video of this thing. And there we go. We are back to printing. Alright, you'll see the finished product of this dragon in a second. So filament sensor is working. Everything is working as it should. Alright, I'm going to print a whole spool of these dragons and I'll see you guys at the desk. Let's go. All right, everybody, as you can see, the mod is complete. The machine is printing and it's printing very well. I'm about halfway done the spool. I'm going to do a full spool of these awesome articulated dragons for Toys for Tots. and as you can see, the quality is awesome. This printer is really good at repeating this type of thing over and over again. So perfect for kind of like a farm situation, or for something like this where you're printing a bunch of these. This test is actually, or this Dragon rather, is actually a pretty good test for the machine. It is somewhat complex in terms of these things. It also has these wings that print upward. As you can see, there's a little tiny bit of wisps here and there, but this is silk filament, so it's as expected. But I would say that this is really great quality for what this is, and I've been printing them over and over again. The cool thing is this machine is so fast that it prints a Dragon this size, this complexity, this big in just over 3 hours. As you can see, this thing is zooming right over here, and it's doing a great job. But I did want to say one thing about the filament path here. As you can see, I'm currently testing the top mount, and this and the side are obviously on the files. They're already pre-sliced on your Ender 3 V3, so be sure to test all three. I do think that this has the best filament path. However, it still manages to kind of snag on this block here when it's homing, and the filament kind of does some funky stuff, which was the problem with the original setup, so I don't really like that. This one, the one that kind of puts the filament horizontal with the bottom over here, might be the best one if you don't have the space horizontally. It does kind of still do something a little bit funky with the filament, I noticed, but this might be the best one. And then the stock one actually works the best, I think, in terms of not having this at the top and having it on the side, because the filament path is still somewhat straight. However, this one does take up the most space horizontally, so if you have to have a few of these machines or you just don't have the space to have this, obviously you can just click print on all these things. As you can see, the quality of the print is just really, really good. So yeah, I do think these machines, both this, the Plus, and the regular one, are a bit slept on, especially now that the K1s have been out for so long. There's a new K2 machine that's about to be released and shipped everywhere. So that is actually going to be a good thing, because I have a feeling these are going to be going on sales more and more, and you obviously don't necessarily need to be on the hype train of Core XY to have a really, really nice machine. And as far as our little modification goes, I think this is a great add-on. I would highly suggest you guys doing this on no matter which of these machines that you have. Clearly, having just one line going to your hot end here, or your entire assembly here, is significantly cleaner. Just a single thing for filament. There's no clips, there's no random things hanging down, there's nothing getting caught. It is just a better setup with this modification, so I definitely suggest it. And even on the K machines, the K1 Max and the K1C could benefit from this modification, because it moves that sensor away from that side on the back that makes the filament path a little bit more weird, and it makes it harder to put filament in sometimes. So by eliminating that completely, you can just make a much better filament path as well. So I definitely really like this, and thank you, Henlor, for this modification, as well as for this remix that I printed here. So yeah, as you can see, I'm having a great time with this machine. I highly suggest you guys check it out. I'm gonna have links for everything for this modification, as well as the machines down below if you guys are interested in buying it. I'll also have links to my store. You can go to 3dprintsos.com and get fun shirts like this, as well as some other swag. There's also a Discord link that's totally free. Lots of like-minded people in there chatting, as well as obviously the Patreon if you want to support in that way as well, and get these videos early in your feeds and comment with me directly. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see more, whether it's for another machine or more for these machines. If you liked it, dislike it, let me know. As always, I'll see you guys in the comments. Later.